Hello and welcome to your daily briefing, the one-stop shop to get you informed and to make you money. Today we're going to talk about how presidential candidate Joe Biden and his running mate may affect the future stimulus check, specifically the $2,000 a month stimulus check, and what research says about these ideas. And before I get into the bulk of this video, I'd like to take a second to talk about the sponsor of this video, Trade Coffee. Trade is an awesome service that allows a newbie to coffee like me to take a short quiz and then have coffee sent to me based on my specific preferences. It's surprisingly affordable, and there's a link in the description that gives you an additional 30% off, so check that out. All right, back to the video. So Joe Biden has chosen Kumala Harris as his running mate in his bid for presidency. And if you remember, just a few months back, Harris was a key originator of a stimulus proposal to give a reoccurring stimulus check of $2,000 a month to the American people. Now, before we get into how this may change up the stimulus check game, let's do a quick recap of her stimulus proposal. So back in May, Senators Bernie Sanders, Ed Markey, and Kamala Harris outlined a proposal that would provide $2,000 a month to individuals who earn less than $100,000 per year. The monthly payment would scale down quickly from $100,000 per year to a cap of $120,000 per year for income earners, after which those who earn more than $120,000 a year would receive no direct stimulus payment whatsoever. This plan would also include a $2,000 a month payment for all child dependents up to a maximum of 3 children. So a family of 5, 2 parents, and 3 children would receive $10,000 per month, making this one of the biggest direct stimulus check proposals of all time. It's huge. A family of 4, 2 parents, and 2 children would receive $8,000 a month. These are huge numbers. The payments would be retroactive through March when President Trump declared a national emergency. This means if it were to pass, a family of 5 could receive a first payment of up to $50,000 for the last 5 months back pay. Of course, this is just a proposal, and it likely wouldn't pass at that level. If it did get passed, there would be some major negotiations there. This is just an idea, and it's a good example of anchor setting where, the bar would be set so high, and then negotiations would be based on that high bar. We're seeing this right now with the HEROES Act, which the bar was set extremely high at a $3.4 trillion package size. And then the Republicans came in at around $1 trillion. And they're like, hey, let's meet in the middle, when they set the bar so extremely high that meeting in the middle is still some of the largest legislation we have ever seen. So it's a real smart idea in negotiations to anchor specifically high or low, depending on what exactly you're trying to do in the negotiations. It works for everything: buying things, negotiating in Congress. It's a super effective principle. So moving on, this bill would also prohibit the monthly payments from being seized by debt collectors, which is really important and was an issue with the first stimulus check, where debt collectors could garnish stimulus check payments. In later bills, most of them outline provisions where debt collectors can't seize any portion, and it really didn't turn out to be that big of an issue with the CARES Act, but banks could have made it an issue is kind of the thing. And this $2,000 per month stimulus would last until 3 months after the public health emergency has been declared ended. Okay, now that we have our bases covered, let's talk about present day. Stimulus talks are still largely at a standstill. There's been some brief communications in the last day or so, but very little actual progress made on it. So there's really nothing to report on it besides saying it's kind of the same old, same old. However, what we do know is that an additional relief bill is likely still, and within that bill, it will very likely contain another stimulus check. Just about everyone is in favor of another check. It's much more a matter of how big will the check be and when will it happen. Now, what part will Harris have in the next stimulus check? Well, currently she's just able to vote on the next stimulus package as a member of Congress or write proposals, but currently Congress will most definitely not approve a $2,000 check or a $2,000 a month check. However, and there's a lot of ifs coming up here. If Biden wins and Harris becomes vice president and Democrats gain control of the Senate, it wouldn't be very surprising to see a reoccurring stimulus or some form of UBI, as these ideas have strong Democratic support behind them. For this to happen, we would also need to see one of the following two scenarios played out. We would either need such a large delay in this current stimulus bill that there are none voted in until Biden actually enters office, or a need for a third stimulus package after this current one if Biden does in fact enter office and there's still a need. So the next logical question is whether this large of a stimulus is a good idea or not. A bill like this would cost about $400 billion a month. On this, I dug into the research of the effectiveness of UBI and its potential consequences through a research paper called Universal Basic Income in the US and Advanced Countries. And this was written by Hilary Hoynes and Jesse Rothstein. They define UBI as providing a generous cash benefit enough to live on without other earnings. It doesn't phase out or phases out slowly, depending on income level, and is available to a large portion of the entire population, rather than being very targeted like many other government programs. This paper looks at historical examples of UBI-like programs and makes inferences on the effects of an inclusive UBI program in the country. Or we can look at it as a reoccurring stimulus because that's kind of the focus of this. They're very similar ideas, actually. The examples they gain insight from in the past are earned income tax credits in the US, cash welfare, Alaska's state oil dividends, and the Cherokee tribal payments. The biggest concern with UBI is the income elasticity of the labor supply, which is a fancy way of saying how many fewer people will want to work if their bills are covered for them. This paper finds that the expectation is the labor supply of men will go down about 5%, and the labor supply for married women will go down about 20%. This paper also cites that a $12,000 per adult UBI without any phase out would lead to a 33% increase in income among single adult families and a 25% increase among married couple families. Part of the issue with studies on UBI are it's very hard to figure out the long-term, like second and third generation effects of these programs. We don't have data on that. We can just infer. And also some of the important questions we just simply have no answers to yet are, will more resources in early adulthood lead to greater human capital investment like employee or experience training, skills training, things like that? Will having more money lead to more skills? And does financial stability affect willingness to take risks or long-term planning? Does having that safety net have a huge positive increase on the willingness for people to start a business, learn skills that maybe are more risky to learn, spend time working on things that aren't lucrative up front? There's a lot of questions there we just simply don't have answers to. And I won't insert my opinions on this program because I think it's important to lay down the facts, explain things in an easy to digest manner. That way you don't have to figure out what these research papers are saying and Google every fifth word because they use scientific terms. And then leave the viewer able to make their own choice on subjective things like this, where we don't know the exact answer. We can just look at the data, see what we do know, and then form opinions after that. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Hit that like button if you did, and take a look at the research study I referenced, linked below in case you want a more in-depth look at UBI or a reoccurring stimulus in this case. And I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a profitable day.